When the Europeans found the Americas, both the northern and southern part had a lot of useful supplies, like potatoes, and it also had some terrible things, something called cocaine. Nowadays we know cocaine as a white powder, but this is not in its natural form. This story starts with a plant called the Coca plant, and you mostly find this in Latin America. It has been 1,000 years since the natives of Latin America have been using the coca leaves for medicine. They believe that it's a very good medicine for you, and it doesn't really get you that high. It's kind of like smoking a cigarette, and after a while you get used to it and don't feel anything. When the Spanish occupied this area of the world, they see what they're doing with the coca plant and they don't really like it. Obviously, they don't like what they do and they call it a satanic act. Obviously, the natives were surprised because they've been doing this for thousands of years, but all of a sudden they're told that they can't do this anymore. So since this is a satanic act, the Spanish started charging the natives a form of tax for eating these coca leaves. So the natives had no other choice but to pay the tax and continue their tradition. This is the story of the coca plant, and the year is the 1500s. And then you go 350 years after this happened, and then you get to 1855, and you get to a country of Germany, where it's well known that they've created some strong narcotics. In this year, a German man by the name of Friedrich Gott starts working on the coca plant and gets a substance out of it and names it cocaine. Frederick wasn't trying to create a strong narcotic, he was just a chemist and he was experimenting with different substances. So he would continue testing and not use it as a drug. And of course, when he created cocaine, he saw no use for it and he forgot about it. But when other scientists got to know cocaine, they got very interested in it and started experimenting with it as well. When other scientists figured out how cocaine is made, they started experimenting on different animals to see what it does. And they specially worked on frogs. When they experimented with frogs, they realized that it acts extremely weird and it later on dies. So they were terrified of actually testing it with themselves. And then we get to the year 1884, when another German scientist is experimenting, and he decides to actually use cocaine, but not normally. He injects it into his eyeball. That's an insane place to choose for your first time. Of course, the first time he did it, it drastically changed his mood, and he couldn't believe what he's feeling. And you could say this was the first time a human being ever used cocaine as a substance. He gets very high and writes down his experience. But of course, he doesn't try it again because it kind of scares him. On the other side of the pond in America, an Italian chemist by the name of Angelo Marani is boiling cocoa and putting it in his wine, because he had a wine factory. On the other side of the country in the state of Georgia, a person by the name of John Pemberton is influenced by this idea of cocoa plants and wine, and he creates his own wine. And what did Pemberton name his wine? Coca-Cola. A lot of people know that Coca-Cola used to be a wine, and if you would like to know more about it, please watch our full video. Let's get back to cocaine. The time John Pemberton is producing his Coca-Cola wine with some cocoa plants in there, you could find cocaine in a form of white powder everywhere in the US. And it wasn't known as a narcotic or an illegal drug. It was actually legal, and a lot of people suggested it. It was kind of like drinking an energy drink, like Red Bull or Monster. In the beginning of the 20th century, cocaine was so famous that scientists would use it so they would have higher performance in experimenting with different things. And then we get to the year 1914. All of a sudden, a lot of analysis and statistics come from the doctors from all over the country, and there is a surge of huge problems with cocaine users. So the US government realizes that this product is making people go insane and it's extremely addictive. Of course, they don't want to create a war between the people, so they sat down and think of a plan on how to fix the addiction of cocaine in America. Back then, it was very racist, especially towards black people, so they started thinking of a way to handle this situation in a racist way, and they introduced the cocaine fiends and basically blamed the black people of America that they use too much cocaine and attack white people. And they basically used propaganda in a way to make the drug illegal, because this is the only way we can stop these attacks. And the funniest part is that African Americans barely used cocaine at that time. It was mainly used by white people, but the propaganda stated otherwise. So in the same year of 1914, cocaine was made illegal in all of the US, and a lot of other countries followed along and made it illegal. After this happens, of course the price of cocaine rises and it becomes a rich man drug. And this name remains to this day. But if you actually pay attention to people that are addicted to cocaine, you'll see that there's zero things that are positive about it. Unfortunately, there is a cheaper version of cocaine made by chemists, something called crack, which is basically a cheaper version of cocaine. And of course, since it's made with worse material, it's much worse for you and deteriorates your body quicker. Just like other drugs, when you use cocaine for the very first time, it seems very tasty for the user, and they want to get that high once again. But the user is never gonna go back to that very first time, and their tolerance rises and they need more and more to feel better. And alongside, the rabbit hole gets deeper and deeper. But what does this drug do to humans? Like any other drugs, a cocaine user must use more each time to feel the same. And if they don't, they're gonna get withdrawals. If you use it for a while, it numbs your taste receptors and your smell receptors, and it's gonna be a little harder to taste food and smell different things. When you use cocaine, it rises blood pressure and your heart beats faster. So of course, it's gonna have negative effects on your heart, and it rises the chance of a heart attack and stroke. A cocaine user will for sure damage their brain, because when you use it, less oxygen enters your brain, and that alone slowly damages your brain. A cocaine user's digestive system never works properly. It's either constipated or diarrhea. Alongside all the other body parts, your liver and kidney are not having fun, especially the liver. You can't find a drug addict like cocaine users that don't have personal problems, like family problem, money problems, social issues, getting fired from your job, and something that hunts them down all the time: the police. Addiction to cocaine is a hard one to let go, and it needs a lot of hard work. But the most important thing we all need to know is to learn how to say no. When someone uses cocaine for the first time, they're never gonna forget the feeling, and you're lucky if you don't like it the first time. So always learn to say no. We wish you the very best.